Community college dropout, right? Let me guess, public defender. The word sliced through the air like a blade. Officer Derek Mallory leaned back against the precinct counter, arms crossed, a smirk spreading across his weathered face. His badge caught the harsh fluorescent light as he sized up the woman standing before him, calm, composed, but visibly shaking with restrained anger. Around them, the mid-morning chaos of the 14th Precinct Police Station hummed with activity. Officers shuffled paperwork. Phones rang. A drunk man slumped in a chair near the holding cells, but slowly conversations began to fade. Heads turned, eyes locked onto the unfolding scene. Someone in the waiting area pulled out their phone. Her name was Naomi Chen. 42 years old. A single mother who'd raised her daughter Kira in a cramped two-bedroom apartment on the south side while working double shifts as a paralegal. She wore a navy blazer over a white blouse, professional, deliberate. Her hair was pulled back into a tight bun, no jewelry except a small silver bracelet her daughter had made for her in middle school. She didn't look like someone who could be pushed around. But Derek Mallory saw something else entirely. He saw an easy target. It had started 20 minutes earlier when Naomi arrived at the precinct to pick up Kira, her 17-year-old daughter who'd been detained for suspicious behavior outside a boutique in the affluent Riverside district. No charges, no stolen goods, just a black teenager carrying shopping bags and a store manager who had a feeling. Naomi's hands had trembled when she got the call at work, not from fear, from fury. She dropped everything, grabbed her purse, and driven straight to the station. Now she stood at the front desk, asking politely, firmly to see her daughter. "I need to speak with whoever's handling my daughter's case," Naomi said, her voice steady but tight. "Kira Chen, she was brought in 2 hours ago. She's a minor and I wasn't contacted until 40 minutes after her detention, which violates." "Ma'am," Mallory raised a hand, cutting her off. "Your daughter was loitering outside an establishment after being asked to leave. That's trespassing." She was waiting for her friend to finish shopping. Mallory's eyes flicked over her dismissively. "Look, I get it. Your kid got caught doing something she shouldn't have been doing and now you're here trying to lawyer up, but this isn't law and order asterisk. You don't just walk in here making demands." Naomi's jaw tightened. "I'm not making demands, I'm asserting my daughter's rights under the law, and mine." Mallory laughed, a short, bitter sound that echoed across the lobby. "Rights, okay." He leaned forward now, elbows on the counter, his voice dropping into a mocking drawl. "Let me guess, you Googled something on the way over here, watched a YouTube video, maybe you took a paralegal course online." Naomi didn't flinch. "I've worked in law for 15 years, she said quietly. "Right," Mallory's smirk widened. "So you file papers, make copies, fetch coffee for the real attorneys." A woman near the vending machine gasped softly. An older officer glanced up from his desk, frowning. Naomi's fingers curled into fists at her sides, but her voice remained calm, controlled. "I'm asking you respectfully to let me see my daughter. She's been here for over 2 hours without legal representation or parental presence. That's a violation of community college dropout, right?" Mallory interrupted again, louder this time. His tone dripped with condescension. "Let me guess, public defender, or maybe you're one of those advocates who shows up at city council meetings complaining about police brutality." The room went silent. Every eye was on them now. Naomi took a slow breath, her chest rose and fell, she didn't break eye contact. "My educational background," she said, each word deliberate, "is irrelevant to the fact that my daughter is being unlawfully detained." Mallory barked out another laugh. "Unlawfully detained. Listen to you." He glanced around the room, playing to an invisible audience. "You know what your problem is? You think you're smarter than you are. You think because you've read a few case files or sat in on a deposition, you understand how the system works." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Harvard Law, Yale, Stanford," he shook his head slowly, mockingly. "Yeah, asterisk right." The phone cameras were out now, 3 people recording, maybe more. Naomi's face remained composed, but her eyes, dark, sharp, unblinking, burned with something deeper than anger. Humiliation. Not for herself. For every person who'd ever been dismissed, underestimated, reduced to a stereotype by someone in a uniform who thought a badge made them untouchable. I'm going to ask you one more time, Naomi said, her voice barely above a whisper now. Let me see my daughter. Mallory straightened up, arms still crossed. And I'm telling you, asterisk, you'll see her when I'm good and ready. Now, if you don't like how we do things here, you can file a complaint. There's a form, takes about 6 weeks to process. Or, he tilted his head, grinning, you can wait over there like everyone else and stop wasting my time. Naomi didn't move. The air felt thick, heavy. Then, the main entrance door swung open. Footsteps confident, steady. The click of heels on tile. Mallory didn't turn around immediately. He was too busy basking in his own sense of dominance, too caught up in the power he thought he wielded. But Naomi's eyes shifted. And for the first time since she'd walked into that precinct, her expression changed. Not fear. Not relief. Something else entirely. Recognition. The footsteps stopped just behind Mallory. A voice, calm, commanding, unmistakable, cut through the silence. Officer Mallory. He froze. His smirk faltered. Slowly he turned around. And when he saw who was standing there, his face went pale. If you think this is shocking already, wait until you hear the twist. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss it. The woman standing behind Officer Derek Mallory didn't need to raise her voice. Her presence did all the talking. Judge Evelyn Hartwell. Late 50s, silver-streaked hair pulled into an elegant twist, a charcoal gray pantsuit that spoke of decades in courtrooms where her word determined fates. Her eyes, sharp, unyielding, swept across the precinct lobby like a searchlight cutting through fog. She wasn't just a judge. She was the judge, chief judge of the district court, the woman who'd presided over more civil rights cases in the past decade than any other sitting judge in the state. The woman whose rulings had forced 3 police departments to overhaul their training policies. And she was standing 5 feet behind Derek Mallory, staring at the back of his head like she could see straight through it. Mallory's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Judge Hartwell, his voice cracked slightly, I wasn't expecting. Clearly, Hartwell's tone was ice wrapped in silk. She stepped forward, heels clicking against the tile with measured precision. Her gaze shifted to Naomi. Ms. Chen, I apologize for being late. Traffic on the bridge was abysmal. Naomi exhaled a single shaky breath and nodded. Thank you for coming, Judge. Mallory's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror in the span of 3 seconds. Around them, phones stayed raised. The recordings continued. Whispers rippled through the waiting area like static. Wait, Mallory's eyes darted between the 2 women. You two know each other. Hartwell didn't look at him. She kept her attention on Naomi, her expression softening just slightly. Ms. Chen isn't just a paralegal, Officer Mallory. Her voice carried across the entire lobby now, cutting through every conversation, every shuffled paper, every ringing phone. She's a graduate of Columbia Law School. She passed the bar exam on her first attempt with one of the highest scores in state history. And for the past 6 years, she's worked as a senior legal consultant for the ACLU, specializing in police accountability cases. The silence that followed was absolute. Mallory's face drained of color. Hartwell continued, her tone never wavering. Ms. Chen has argued before appellate courts. She's authored legal briefs that have been cited in landmark civil rights decisions, and she's currently consulting on a federal oversight case involving excessive force complaints filed against this very precinct. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Another voice, "He's done." Mallory stammered, I didn't, she never said. She didn't need to? Hartwell finally turned to face him fully, and the weight of her stare made him take a step back. Because her credentials, her education, her accomplishments, they have absolutely nothing to do with whether or not she deserves basic respect and the legal right to see her detained minor child. Mallory opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Hartwell stepped closer. But let's be clear about what happened here, officer. You didn't just dismiss Ms. Chen because you thought she was unqualified. You dismissed her because you assumed based on her appearance, her race, and your own biases that she couldn't possibly be qualified. You mocked her, belittled her, and you did it publicly in front of witnesses while violating her daughter's constitutional rights. Mallory's jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. With all due respect, Your Honor, I was just doing my job. The girl was... The girl, Hartwell interrupted sharply, was waiting for a friend. She committed no crime. She posed no threat, and yet she was detained for over 2 hours without parental notification, a clear violation of juvenile detention protocol. An older officer near the back of the room shifted uncomfortably and looked away. Hartwell wasn't finished. And when her mother, an officer of the court, a legal professional with more courtroom experience than half the prosecutors in this city, arrived to exercise her parental and legal rights, you responded with mockery and obstruction. She paused, letting the words settle like stones. That's not doing your job, Officer Mallory, that's abusing your authority. If this part has you on edge, hit the like button right now. It lets us know you want more stories like this. Mallory's face flushed red now, anger mixing with humiliation. I didn't know who she was, how was I supposed to? That's exactly the point. Naomi's voice cut through, calm but edged with steel. She stepped forward, meeting Mallory's eyes for the first time since Hartwell had arrived. You didn't need to know who I was, you just needed to treat me and my daughter like human beings. The crowd was silent, waiting. Naomi continued, her voice steady. You saw a black woman walk through those doors and you made assumptions. You decided before I even finished my first sentence that I wasn't worth listening to, that I didn't deserve respect, that I was beneath you. Mallory tried to interrupt, that's not. But here's what you didn't see. Naomi's voice rose slightly, not in anger but in clarity. You didn't see the single mother who worked 3 jobs to put herself through college. You didn't see the nights I stayed up until 3 a.m. studying case law while my daughter slept in the next room. You didn't see the scholarships, the internships, the hours I spent proving over and over again that I belonged in spaces where people like you assumed I didn't. Her voice cracked just slightly and she paused, steadying herself. You didn't see me, you saw a stereotype, and you treated me accordingly. The murmurs grew louder now, heads nodded, someone muttered, damn right. Mallory looked around, suddenly aware of how many people were watching, recording. His mouth opened, but whatever defense he'd been preparing dissolved under the weight of a dozen smartphone cameras and the unwavering gaze of a judge who'd built a career on dismantling systems exactly like this. Hartwell stepped forward again, addressing not just Mallory but the entire room. This precinct is currently under federal review for patterns of discriminatory policing, excessive stops, unlawful detentions, disproportionate use of force against minority communities. She let that hang in the air. Cases like this, documented, witnessed, recorded, will be submitted as evidence in that review. An officer near the dispatch desk muttered something under his breath and walked away. Hartwell's gaze followed him briefly before returning to Mallory. Officer, you will release Kira Chen immediately. You will issue a formal apology to both Ms. Chen and her daughter, and you will provide written documentation of this detention, including the names of every officer involved and the specific justification for the stop. Mallory's jaw worked, his hands trembled slightly. Your Honor, I don't have the authority to. Then find someone who does. Hartwell's voice dropped to a near whisper, but it carried the force of a gavel strike. Now. For a moment, Mallory didn't move. Then slowly he turned and walked toward the back offices, his shoulders hunched, his swagger gone. 10 minutes later, the heavy security door buzzed open. Kira Chen stepped through, flanked by a female officer who looked deeply uncomfortable. Kira was 17, tall, lean, wearing a faded hoodie and ripped jeans. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her chin was raised, defiant, tired, relieved. The moment she saw her mother, her composure cracked. Mom. Naomi crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. Kira's shoulders shook. Naomi pressed her face into her daughter's hair, eyes closed, holding on like she might never let go. I'm here, Naomi whispered. I'm here, you're okay. The crowd watched in silence, a few people wiped their eyes. Judge Hartwell stood off to the side, hands clasped in front of her, giving them space. But her expression, normally so composed, softened just slightly, almost imperceptibly. After a long moment, Naomi pulled back, holding Kira's face in her hands. Did they hurt you? Kira shook her head. No, just scared me. Her voice was small, fragile. They kept asking me questions, where I got the money for the clothes, why I was in that neighborhood. They kept saying I looked suspicious. Naomi's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice gentle. You didn't do anything wrong, baby. You hear me? Nothing. Kira nodded, tears streaming down her face. Naomi glanced over at Hartwell, who stepped forward. Kira, Hartwell said quietly, I know this was frightening, but I want you to understand something. What happened to you today wasn't right, it wasn't legal, and it's not going to be ignored. Kira looked up at her eyes wide. Who are you? Judge Evelyn Hartwell, I work with your mother sometimes. She offered a small, reassuring smile. And I promise you this won't happen again, not to you, not to anyone else if I can help it. Outside the precinct, the afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Naomi and Kira walked side by side toward their car, Hartwell a few steps behind. Before they reached the vehicle, Naomi turned back. Judge Hartwell, her voice was thick with emotion. Thank you, I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't. Hartwell raised a hand gently. You would have handled it, Naomi, you always do. She paused. But you shouldn't have to fight this hard just to be heard, that's why we keep fighting the bigger fight. Naomi nodded, swallowing hard. Hartwell glanced back toward the precinct. I'll be filing a formal complaint with Internal Affairs, and I'll be recommending mandatory retraining for every officer in that building. Her eyes hardened. This ends today. 3 weeks later, the video had been viewed over 4 million times. Officer Derek Mallory was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. 2 other officers involved in Kira's detention were reassigned. The 14th Precinct implemented a new policy requiring immediate parental notification for all juvenile detentions. And Naomi Chen, she testified before a federal oversight committee, holding up her daughter's detention as a case study in the systemic biases that still plagued modern policing. Kira sat in the gallery watching her mother speak, confident, articulate, undeniable. When Naomi finished, the room erupted in applause. Kira's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were different. Bride. Justice isn't just about courtrooms and rulings. It's about the moments when someone assumes you don't belong, and you prove them devastatingly wrong. It's about the mothers who fight for their children even when the system tries to silence them. And it's about the truth that no badge, no uniform, no position of power gives anyone the right to strip away someone's dignity. Document everything, know your rights, stand together because justice starts with awareness.